Unfortunately, I was muted.
That makes it difficult.
So, never mind. I'm the other one that needs a haircut. But I'm not going to go the drastic way of having a number one.
A number 4. You can have a number 4.
Makes it difficult. I'm the other one that needs a haircut. Okay, let's go for it. Where are we?
I think we're live on YouTube now, members.
Okay, ladies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the meeting. I'd like to start with a number of housekeeping items to announce. This town council meeting is being recorded and is open to the public, who will have an opportunity to take part in the Q&A under item 8 of the agenda. The meeting is chaired by the mayor and is hosted by the clerk, who will admit people to the meeting and can also mute or remove participants at the request of the chair. I hope and assume this won't be necessary. Please respect the office of council and remember that the required standards of courteous conduct and discussion must be adhered to. I won't tolerate discourteous conduct. I'm asking group leaders to ensure their members conduct themselves appropriately throughout this meeting. The mayor will call councillors to speak. Speaking out of turn or when another person is speaking isn't permissible, nor is shouting or the use of impolite language. Should this happen, I reserve the right to mute or move the person to the waiting room. When you want to speak, please raise your hand clearly. The clerk or relevant group leader will alert me should I not notice your hand. If you don't catch my or the clerk's eye, please message me via the chat function. To keep this meeting concise, please be brief and stick to the subject matter. Don't introduce matters unrelated to the issues debated. Please only speak if you've got something additional to add. That way we'll make the meeting go a bit faster. I can see you want to speak, Councillor Butler. If a new motion comes to vote, the town clerk will type the wording into the Zoom chat function to allow clarity. This won't apply to motions already on the agenda. Voting will be done by an alphabetic roll of councillors. Members will be called to vote one by one by the clerk, who will tally the votes and announce the result. Please vote clearly by stating for, against, or abstain. The clerk will announce the result. This voting procedure is based on the National Association of Local Councils publication entitled Holding Remote Meetings. Please don't leave the meeting. Eating and drinking other than water isn't allowed, just as in Fairway Hall. Please keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting unless you're suffering technical issues. Should a camera be turned off, I'll assume the participant has left the meeting. Please mute yourself when not speaking and remember to put your mobile devices on silent. This helps keep background noise to a minimum and it will improve everybody's ability to hear the discussions. Can everybody hear? Can everybody hear and see okay? Good. Councillor Butler, before we move to item number 1, the apologies, you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify, because obviously we had an email sent round. So from part of the brief that you've just given us there, I just want to clarify that actually before anyone is removed, that it will be taken to a seconder and then a vote with that please, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify exactly what I understand.
Yes, so so it will go to vote. I will only ask to remove somebody if they don't comply when I ask them to mute, or they speak over anybody else, myself or any other member, or use impolite language.
That has to be seconded, Mr. Mayor, correct?
It will definitely be seconded, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So item number 1 on the agenda, apologies, to receive any apologies for non-attendance. Any apologies, Councillor Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just apologies for Michelle. It looks like she'll be running late. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? To receive declarations of interest from councillors on items on the agenda, to receive written requests for dispensations for declarable interests, and to grant any requests for dispensation as appropriate. Any declarations of interest? Okay. Minutes. to approve and adopt the minutes of the full council meeting held on the 13th of January 2021. Can we adopt and approve these minutes? Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
And we take into account the
Agreed.
change that Councillor Butler mentioned earlier.
For the
Item,
record, that's just a typograph in the spelling of the word COVID.
yeah. Item number 4, financial risk assessment and policy documentation to resolve to adopt 4.1 financial risk assessment 2021 of the accounts and audit England resolutions 2011. The council must minutes an appropriate risk assessment being carried out during the year. Can we do councillors want to go through them individually, or can we agree all 4 of them together?
Individually.
Individually, okay. Item number 1. Can we agree item number 1, the financial risk assessment?
Agreed.
Agreed.
We will
Agreed.
agree on that. Item number 2, standing orders. Are we agreed on those?
Agreed.
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 Item number, Councillor Newmark, you wanted to speak?
On item number 3, if that's where we are.
Okay, I will agree on item number 3. Councillor Newmark wants to say something first.
Yeah, in previous meetings, we have discussed the importance and the imperative of the council moving away from using cheques on a regular basis to electronic transactions. The financial regulations as they stand don't seem to indicate movement in that direction. And I think that in the section on payments, we need to include an additional paragraph making it clear that within the next 12 months at the very latest, but hopefully sooner, we will be moving away from using cheques to far more secure and modern electronic transactions. You know, we agreed this as a council, and I would expect that to be reflected in the financial regulations that we're agreeing for the next period. Otherwise, we haven't really moved forward. It is something we agreed. It should appear in the financial regulations with some kind of timeline.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. I'm going to go to the clerk and then followed by Councillor Kaza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it'll be far, far quicker than the next 12 months. In fact, we've already moved towards making the more regular payments virtual, or not virtual, online rather than through cheques. The issue for us is with the bank making new payments to people who haven't previously received money. So things like payments to Hertsmere Borough Council, or the gas bills and that kind of thing, very straightforward for us to move to. Otherwise, we're working with the Metro Bank in order to do that. It'll be far sooner than I spoke only to the finance officer earlier today about this. We'll do it within weeks, not months. What I would also like to say is that if you remember at a previous meeting, I mentioned that I felt it prudent to obtain approval from our internal auditors that such an arrangement would be to their satisfaction. Initially, they raised or offered the suggestion that it would be lawful if the members themselves, the signatory members themselves, made the actual transactions on the Metro Bank websites. I said that can't possibly be practical for us. Oh, hang on, an attendee, John Cartledge. I'll leave him there until the public questions, unless members want me to bring him in. Where was I? Oh yes, the auditors. So I said, well, look, I've canvassed the views of other authorities and not just neighbouring ones, because as I mentioned previously, but there are different regulations that are applicable and different AGAR, that's the annual return regulations applicable, depending on the size of your authority. So I wanted to find out what some of the larger authorities in Hertfordshire were doing. The model that I liked the best, and I think would be best for us, was that of Hatsfield. And I've worked with a clerk there on a proposal, and she said that their auditors were fine with what they've done. I haven't heard back from the internal auditor yet, but I'm encouraged to think that she will eventually respond and say that what we've suggested is going to meet those. I can't remember the section in the financial regs where it mentions electronic payments. But if something can be included, I'll see what other authorities have done, if you like, or I'll just simply add that in. Perhaps best not to put the timeline in. You can record that in the minutes that I've said, it'll be a matter of weeks rather than months, because obviously this document needs to be effective going forward. So we'll just have to take it out again once it's been effected. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Councillor Kaza.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thanks. I just wanted to add one more item. He didn't add, you should have cash also out of the picture, not just checks. Cash.
Thank you, Councillor Kaza.
No cash transactions, because last time you mentioned that there were cash transactions also. We should avoid cash transactions.
I need to think about, I'm happy to do whatever members ask. I don't know whether there might be some instances, here's Michelle Vince, I'm going to let her in, promote to panelist, where you might want to make a cash transactions or petty cash to buy small items. But also, I'm presuming that members want to retain the ability to write checks should they wish to. I was thinking about, say, prize winners, somebody who wins the best float in the civic parade or something like this, whether there might be some instances where it's desirable to write a check, something you can physically hand over rather than a simple electronic transaction. But for the vast majority of payments to be done online. What I have in mind for the process, if you're happy with this, is to continue preparing the voucher sheets, the ones that look like this, and then for the two signatory members to sign those off. And once that's happened, then for an officer to make all the transactions online on the Metro Bank, provided we have the relevant account details of the recipient of the payments. Then that can be downloaded and printed off and added to the year-end cash book that we provide to show that it's reconciles with the accounts. That seems like a sensible way of doing it. We should be pleased that I think that the Town Council has, even through this difficult time, you can see by the number of payments made in the transactions before you this evening, there's nobody waiting for money from the Town Council. So we've been meeting all of those demands for payments. There's been quite a few of them. I didn't think it practical that members type in and sign off each individual payments, because as you can see from the numbers on the voucher sheets, there are so many that this Town Council carries out in a year that it just seemed, I think it's too much to ask of members to do that. It would take forever.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clark.
Can I just take
yes,
one more minute?
Councillor Kaza, just before you carry on, just want to ask if people don't mind muting themselves. It's make sure that we don't have background noise, and just the person who's speaking to be unmuted. Thank you. Kaza.
For the life of me, can't understand the reluctance about getting rid of cash and checks, considering that we run a huge bank now, 100 million odd bank, without any cash, without any check. I mean, so many charities that we have got, they're all running only on internet. Everything runs on internet nowadays, and here we are discussing that we need cash, we need check, auditors approve it and all that. I leave it to you, sir. I have no problem at all. Thanks for your time.
Councillor Kaza, thank you very much. I think this is best referred to the GMC, which is the relevant committee that deals with this sort of thing. And I'm sure GMC will get back to us once a system has been put in place. Did you want to say something? Did the clerk want to say something?
Only to say there's no reluctance to do it, but I'm just wondering that whether you might want to retain the ability to write some checks and to make some small payments in cash for I don't know, a bottle of milk or something, rather than make every single payment electronically. Are you with me?
Yes, I am. Yes, I agree. I agree with the clerk. We have to have some petty cash, like you say, a bottle of milk and this type of thing. you know, you can't be so, we need to be a little bit open about, you know, with some money in the town office, but mostly okay, bank transfers and things like that. But we do need to have some cash, I think, personally. Maybe we should take a vote on it.
I'm going to call Councillor Strapp. I just want to say that, remember, a lot of the people paying for the coach trips pay by cash. So I think that personally taking the ability to pay by cash or cheque away from residents is wrong. And also, obviously, petty cash is quite important. Councillor Strapp, then Councillor Butler.
Just to say that I agree that there should be some cash transactions, just as there should be a minimum of cheque transactions for the reasons you've stated. And I think that I agree that it should go to GMC for proper debate.
Right.
Councillor Butler. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm about to. That's going to go down in history as one of the most well-used lines, isn't it? Unmute. Anyway, yes, Mr. Mayor, I just to repeat, really, I know we're not allowed to repeat, but Pat took out my mouth there. Let's take it to GMC. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I think we're all agreed it will go to the next GMC meeting. Are we agreed on that?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 4/4. The council subcommittee and forum terms of reference and delegated authority document will be reviewed by council at its meeting on the 9th of June 21. Once the annual council meeting has agreed the committees and subgroups of the council. Can we agree on that, colleagues?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay.
Agreed.
Agreed. That's agreed. Item number 5, the outside bodies. We're going to item 5 on to coronavirus report by the town mayor detailing actions taken during the pandemic, together with the annual report, video presentation if available. Would it be okay for me to refer you to the report and the video that was shown at the annual parish meeting last week?
Why not?
Okay, so refer you to that. Item number 2, outside bodies, reports as follows. It is understood that many of these organisations have not met since the last council meeting. So we're going to start with Fairway Hall and the town clerk.
Mayor. So currently the Fairway Hall facility is closed. My understanding is that we'll be permitted to open again from the 17th of May for indoor hospitality with all of the restrictions that are in place, and then back up to full normality at the it's the 21st of June, isn't it? The council has received about 12 applications or expressions of interest in renting Fairway Hall, and what we've said to these people who we dearly want to come back and use our facilities is that we'll allow them to do so and put provisional bookings in place for them with any restrictions that are allowed at the time. So, for example, there's one lady who's asked for a bar mitzvah party to take place on the 5th of June, which is before the full lifting of restrictions on the 21st. So at the moment, the answer to her would be yes, provided there's only up to 30 people present for that event at that time. So that sort of thing. I very much want to encourage use of Fairway Hall, and nobody more than I wants to get back to normality. In terms of the hall itself, there have been problems with the facility, perhaps through non-use, with regards to leaks in the ceiling and some movement in the floorboards of the floor, all of which the hall supervisors are dealing with capably, and we're seeking to reach amicable solutions with the various contractors to those problems. And I think, unless there's questions, that there ends my report about Fairway Hall. There's one hand up.
I unmute myself. Does anybody have any questions for?
Yes, please.
Councillor Turner.
Hugh, you're talking about dates in May and June. Does that mean we could live in eternal hope that everything goes to plan, that we'll be able to have our meetings back there?
Thank you, Councillor Turner, which is why we've said, depending on what laws are
Yes, of course.
at that time, subject to change. But in the meantime, I don't know, it seems a little bit harsh to put people off. We want to try and encourage people back to Fairway Hall, and provided that they're compliance with the rules, you know, it would be good to have them back.
Absolutely, thank you.
Are there any other questions to the clerk regarding Fairway Hall? Okay, we move on to Leeming Aycliffe Big Local, Councillor Vince. I take it that Councillor Vince is Councillor.
Yeah,
Vince.
yeah, no, I keep losing connection, so
That's fine.
I've turned the camera off. But no, I haven't got anything to update on that.
Okay, so can I just, as the other council on the League Local, can I refer councillors to the substantial report sent to us by Donna Inwood in time for the annual parish meeting? Elstream Borough Museum Group, Councillor Collins.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's unfortunately not a great deal to report about from the museum at the moment due to the ongoing lockdown. It has remained closed since last year, March 2020. However, volunteers have continued to maintain an active presence of the museum on their Facebook page and the museum website, with photo quizzes and the choice of a museum object each week to be featured on social media. The aim in this premise is for an online museum where volunteers post an object and write up some text about it with very relevant local history. Thankfully, they have the privilege of online viewing and participation. It is again noteworthy to point out that volunteers are continuously working on a statistic display which will stand in the cafe area of 96 Shendley Road as soon as the building is allowed to reopen to the public. If the restrictions are lifted and the museum is opened, probably come July of this year, hopefully, then the current Holby City exhibition may remain in place for a further couple of months, enabling volunteers to have ample time to work on the next exhibition. On a positive outlook, I wish to thank all of the volunteers, trustees, along with Ms. Stratton, Councillor Butchins, my colleagues at the Labour Party, and the many users of the museum for their participation and cooperation. Let's continue to be optimistic and look forward to better days ahead with God's blessing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Does anybody have any questions of Councillor Collins regarding the Elstream Bournemouth Museum Group? No questions. Okay, we're back to Councillor Vince, Bournemouth and Elstree Twin Town Association. Councillor Vince, do you have anything to report?
I do not.
Thank you, Councillor Vince. Elstree Bournemouth District Community Association, Councillor Parnell.
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. During 2020, the Board of Trustees of Elstree Bournemouth and District Community Association, trading as Allen Manor, committed to an active programme of continued community service during times of lockdown. Since then, it has hosted the Gratitude Food Bank, GP-led flu clinics and National Health Service Patient Assessment Centre for residents worried about possible symptoms of COVID to meet medical staff. In November 2020, we proposed to the NHS Hearts Valley Clinical Commissioning Group that Allen Hall be used to hold vaccination clinics for the residents of all of Hertsmere. The first clinic started on the 7th of January. Last Saturday, during the 23rd clinic held at Allen Hall, we found our 20,000th patient. We are now discussing the next 4 months of clinics and beyond. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parnell. Hertsmere Mencap, Councillor Rennie.
Sorry,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor,
Barnett,
can I
you
just
have a
jump in
question?
there, please? I have a question, please, Mr. Mayor.
Question.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, it's directly related to the access to Allen Manor at the moment. I've seen now 3 or 4 occasions where, because of the amount of traffic coming into the car park there, they've actually been causing traffic problems as well. It's not extreme in the sense as it's stopping the traffic fully, but it's enough to actually cause issues with people crossing the road. It's quite a busy junction at that time. Is there any way that we can get just a message of concern back to Allen Hall there, just to say, look, can this improve slightly, please? How they actually, I know they've got marshals there letting people in and out, but there has been occasions now where there's a hell of a lot of traffic building up there. It's only a matter of time before there's an accident or someone gets run over. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Parnell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Richard, because I got this from Mr. Bob Redmond, so I will speak to him. I've got a meeting with him this week, so I will speak to him about what you said.
That's great. If not, I can go direct. Otherwise, whatever.
No,
Yeah,
whatever you like,
fine.
whatever is
Whatever.
convenient to you. But I will see him this week.
Thank you.
And thank you, colleagues. Councillor Annie Mencap. Can you unmute yourself, please, Councillor Annie? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hasme Mencap held their AGM on the 18th of January. The highlight of the meeting was the election of officers and financial report of the previous year, which is 2019-2020. Hasme Mencap reported an increase in income of £125,350 compared to £106,703 on the year before. Also, expenditure went up from 99,418 to £107,682, giving them a surplus of 17,682. They are continuing with the activities virtually on Zoom and hope to meet in person as soon as possible, dependent on the lockdown being lifted. For years, the organization has been raising money to replace their old bus that they use to transport members. I'm glad to report that a new vehicle has been purchased to replace the old one that will be delivered later in the year. Mr. Paul Moser remains the chairperson of Hasme Mencap. This is the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Annie, and I'd like to congratulate Mencap for all the work they've done during lockdown. It's particularly difficult for people who are suffering from mental health issues, being stuck indoors all day. So take my hat off to them for the wonderful work they've done during the past year. I'm going to move on now to Alden Country Park. We're going to start with Councillor Pat Strack, who's the outside representative on that body, and then we'll move on to Councillor Newmark to enable him to make the statement he wanted to make at the annual parish. Councillor Strack.
Ordnance Country Park Advisory Panel. We've not met recently, but there are some updates. Herts County Council officers have been working to ensure that the gate remains open around the reservoir. Negotiations are ongoing, but the latest injunction will last until September 2021. No more fences may be erected in the meantime. County Councillor Caroline Clapper was in negotiations to get the kissing gate installed near the fishery entrance. Ordnance Renaissance report that they have had 3 difficult months with little income and having to pay back a lot of the Christmas drive-through bookings when they went into level 3 and the lockdown. Usually Easter is their busiest time, but it is a pity that they can't open the farm this year. However, they are hoping that they will see a lot of visitors when they do open the farm on the 12th of April. A large sinkhole appeared from a pipe that crosses the park from the British Bioproducts Limited. Ordnance Renaissance are in discussions for them to hopefully put this right before they open up. They'd like to thank Elstree and Borehamwood Town Council for their support, and they hope to do up the car park, install the new payment system, and invest in upgrading the public toilets in the coming weeks. The shop is open and the cafe and the kiosk are both open for takeaway only. Alden and Renaissance hope to open the playground as soon as it dries up. Alden Country Park Trust Limited, there is still no update on the registration of the footpath as a DMMO. Elstree and Borewood Greenbelt Society continues to campaign to save the historic reservoir. Further news will be on their website. Aldenham Angling Society didn't provide an update. There's no further news to report on discussions between Hertsmere Borough Council and Liberty Lake Leisure Limited. Park Run will resume their runs on June the 5th. So that's good news indeed.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions to Councillor Strack? No questions. Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Newmark. Just want to remind you, Councillor Newmark, that eating during council meetings isn't really appropriate. Councillor Newmark, if you'd like to give the report you wanted to give at the meeting last Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really understand your comment about eating, but certainly as somebody with health issues, I don't really need to take lessons from you as to when I can and when I can't eat. Also, I'm not sure why I'm being asked at this point in the meeting to reprieve my answer that you so rudely interrupted at the annual parish meeting, because this item is a report about Ordnance Country Park. Now, anyone familiar with these issues understands that Ordnance Reservoir, which was the issue being responded to at the annual parish meeting, is an entirely separate entity from Ordnance Country Park. Now, Mr. Mayor, I did write to you after the meeting asking at which point during this meeting I would be able to answer the question. You failed to provide a response, and I'm not sure exactly why Ordnance Reservoir is being categorised under Ordnance Country Park. I think maybe there's some misunderstanding about the two separate entities. Nevertheless, I will sort of take up your invitation and answer the question that was posed by Mr. Cartledge at the annual parish council meeting, who really asked about the role the town council could and should be playing in saving the reservoir. You unilaterally chose, despite the fact that the question had been asked of all councillors, to ask Councillor Strack to answer that question. Again, I'm not quite sure why that was necessarily appropriate. But you know, the reality is, and all I really wanted to say at the meeting is that whilst all sorts of people have done lots of valuable work to campaign around the reservoir, this work has been primarily led by EBRA, Save Ordnance Reservoir and Dr. Dan Zorro, despite the efforts of some people to erase them from the picture. I think that we do need to recognise who is doing the work, because recognising who is doing the work is important in terms of actually bringing all of the key parties together. Now, I believe, and this is my personal view, and I'm not sure why it should be considered party political, because it's not party political. The only kind of position that the Labour Party has is that we want to work with everybody who is making an effort to save the reservoir. But the situation isn't quite as it was portrayed in the report just now. For instance, the report omitted to mention the fact that over the past few weeks, the sailing club has finally had to leave the reservoir after many, many decades. And that is a serious deterioration. And it's hardly balanced out by the introduction of a new gate, welcome though that is. And my point really is that we discussed this at a meeting quite some time ago, also in response to a question from John Cartledge. And I believe that we had reached a consensus at that point that Elstree and Borewood Town Council should effectively act as the convener of all parties involved in wanting to save the reservoir, that we should call an all parties meeting together with all the campaign groups and individuals so that they could come around the table and have that discussion and agree a way forward. And that in advance of that meeting, we would consider commissioning research from experts on sites of this nature, looking at the options available to us, be it registering it as a site of relevance or significance with the Department of the Environment, many other options that are open. And we do have the funds as a council to commission such a piece of research. Obviously, we don't have an update from the discussions being held by Hertsmere Borough Council, because despite what they may try and lead you to believe, nobody in this council is privy to those discussions. It is my understanding, last time I sought an update from Borough Council officers, that actually they really haven't delivered any progress at all, and it's been a case of one step forward, two steps backwards. So we are left and we remain with a significant threat to the reservoir. There is a deterioration of the situation with the enforced removal of the sailing club. In my view, and again, I don't understand why my view is being branded as party political. This council does need to step up. This cannot be left as the domain of one or two people to go away, act like busy bees, but actually continually come back with no progress. It needs to be done in an open, democratic, and accountable manner. We should call a meeting of all relevant parties. We should commission research, and there is much more that we as an authority can do. We're not doing enough right now. We're not getting straight answers to questions. And I fail to understand why one or two members of this council see this as their domain and continually oppose the widening of this campaign to involve a broad cross-section of local people. We saw at the demonstration that over 200 people came out. Unfortunately, a number of town councillors were missing from that demonstration, but I think that shows you the appetite and the support for this. And it really is time that we step the campaign up, we do the work, we invest some of the money and resource that this council holds in moving the position forward. That's not party political. It's a plea for us to come together, to open up this campaign, to work with local people and to do what needs doing. Who could possibly object to that? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Strack. Councillor Strack, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry. First of all, the sailing club. Yes, it is to be deplored, but I've given the report on the sailing club's removal and why they decided they had to leave. Their position was untenable in the end, and I do think that is something to be deplored. And I've never held back from that. I've reported that at every Ordnance Country Park advisory panel meeting in the past. On January the 15th, 2020, at the full town council meeting, Mr. John Cartledge asked that we would, the town council would broker talks. On the 22nd of January 2020, I met John Cartledge, and Hugh Jones, the clerk, was with me. And at the time we had held discussions with councillors, and we decided, because of the delicate negotiations that were going forward at the time, that we would not proceed, and we could not broker any groups to meet together. The Alden Country Park Advisory Panel comprises most of the, if not all of the interested parties in the reservoir. Apart from, they all have an interest in the reservoir, even though the reservoir is separate and is private and not part of the lease land that Herts County Council holds and which Ordnance Renaissance lease. So my view is that at the moment, I don't know that there is a demand to include any other group. I certainly have been involved, not just the Busy Bee, I physically have been involved with Ordnance Reservoir and Ordnance Country Park all for over 20 years. And it has always been my ambition to ensure that it was saved in perpetuity for the residents. And I've worked towards that aim. You might recall, but I don't think you were around at the time, when the Greenbelt Society and Ordnance Country Park Trust were involved with the Gosrani brothers to try and do a deal that the reservoir would be exchanged for the land on the fisheries. If they were enabled to build on the land by the fishery, then money would be put aside for the reservoir to be managed. That didn't happen. But at the time, EBRA opposed it. And, you know, they've changed their position lately, and I'm glad that they did do so. But at the time, they opposed it. Other things that you've brought up here, I really can't understand it. As you say, it's your view, my views are my view. I'm involved in many of the other groups that are trying to ensure that the reservoir is saved. I can tell you that we tried to register the reservoir as a community asset, but it can't be registered because it's a reservoir. And so you would need to check all of that out as well. I don't really think I've got anything else to say, except that all of the time negotiations have been going on. Okay, I'm not party to what Hertsby Borough Council says and what they do. And you're a borough councillor, it's your position, you could ask those questions. I just have to trust what they tell me. And hopefully negotiations take a long time. And really that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Strike. Can we move on to Maxwell Park Management Group? And that's Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, the update is, as a community hall, actually fairly similar to the situation that the town clerk just outlined regarding Fairway Hall, in that provision is being made to sort of reopen and welcome the various community groups and other external users as the situation becomes clearer in relation to the detail of the ongoing lifting of COVID restrictions. I also believe that the management group are looking forward to reopening the discussions and planning about potential redevelopment and expansion of the site. And I'm sure that all members of this authority will welcome those plans, and obviously we'll have the opportunity to look at them and input into them when they come forward. But I think it's great to see this important community facility looking to modernise and expand after the very difficult and challenging year that they have had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Any questions to Councillor Newmark regarding Maxwell Park Management Group? Okay, we move on now to first impressions, Councillor Parnell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Well, I don't actually, can I just ask Councillor Collins, have you got the report? Because if you have, you can read it out. Because we're both.
You have the report?
No, I haven't got any report, but I would like to say this.
Well,
yes, I'm very pleased.
Excuse me.
Councillor Collins, we'll let Councillor Parnell speak. Then
I have a report. I didn't know if you had it. You could have read it out with pleasure. But if you haven't, I've got a report. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Okay, thank you. Update for full town council, 10th of March. Meeting with the management team of GTR Thameslink. First impressions was one of 6 key community partnerships, organisations invited to meet Managing Director Tom Moran on the 1st of March. In response to my question about our aim to use the station as a community information centre, he cited First Impressions as a model of what could be achieved. A meeting of the First Impression project board. The project board will meet by Zoom on Friday, the 12th of March. Representatives of members' organisations last met on the 16th of January 2020. The Passenger Benefit Fund. After public consultation, First Impressions submitted a bid on 31st of July 2019 for £80,000 of funding, provisionally allocated to Elstree and Bourne Wood, as a way to say sorry for the severe disruptions caused by introduction of new timetables in 2018. Our grant was awarded in full in October 2019, and we requested more planting on the station forecourt by the end of March. 6 large shrubs should have been placed in planters on the station forecourt near the taxi rank. Additional work was proposed a year ago, and I continue to ask this will be done and how much it will cost. Extra seating. By the start of 2021, new plastic benches have been replaced, previous benches, and then extra benches have been placed on platforms 1 and 2. However, this seems to be part of a wider program by Network Rail, and I have asked why any of our PBF grant should pay for it. I continue to ask whether the 2 new seats are requested in 2019 will be installed, and if so, where and when will this be done and how much will it cost? An electronic information kiosk in front of the station. In January, GTR Thameslink confirmed that the kiosk proposed on February 2020 is permitted under the terms of the PBF. However, I do not know how much our £80,000 grant from GTR Thameslink has decided it will spend on the 2 projects described above. And so I do not know whether additional match funding might be required for the new kiosk. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parnell. Councillor Collins, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to say that in addition to what Councillor Parnell has said, I'm pleased to say that the relationship at First Impression has improved. This is the second time within 2 years since I've been informed about meetings, and I hope that we improve our relationship and I'll be able to liaise with the Labour Party as well as First Impression. This is a first step, and it is worth being acknowledged, and I'm pleased that First Impression is carrying on what is expected, and again, that I've been informed about meetings. This is the second time within 2 years since I've been informed about meeting, and this meeting is scheduled to be held come Friday. So well done. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Collins, just want to remind you, Councillor Collins, that you're a representative of Elstree and Bournemouth Town Council on First Impressions and not of your particular political group. Councillor Parnell.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm aware of that, Mr. Mayor. But what I'm trying to get across is this: all along within 2 years, this is the second time I've been informed about meeting, and there's a step forward with regards to our building up our relationship. And I hope the relationship continues to build up, and I'm being kept informed about meetings that are scheduled to be held. Because in the past, I always heard about meetings after meetings have been held. And I hope that I'm looking forward to working in a good relationship with the First Impression group. Because I'm the member, I'm the representative from the Labour group. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Just remind you once again, you're not the representative from the Labour group, you're the representative on behalf of the whole Town Council, and that applies to all of us that sit from outside bodies. Councillor Parnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased about that. What I represent the entire group, but at least the point I'm trying to get across, Mr. Mayor, please, Councillor Parnell, I'm speaking. What the point I'm trying to get across, Mr. Mayor, is that although I'm working for the entire Town Council, but at least I need to be informed about meetings that are supposed to be held, not be kept in the dark. And I'm pleased that this time around, I'm being informed about meeting to be held come Friday.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Parnell.
Mr. Mayor, I can actually tell you categorically every single meeting I was invited to by Mr. Bob Redman, Councillor Collins's name was on every email that I received, every email, 100%, 100%. That is why this evening I asked if Councillor Collins had got a report from First Impressions and would he like to read it out? Because I actually got in touch with Mr. Bob Redman to ask if he had a report. I took the trouble to do that. So it actually has to come from the councillor, the person themselves as well. Every one of my invites has been with Councillor Collins's name on that email. And I can find them for you and give them to you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parnell. Are there any questions to Councillor Parnell or Councillor Collins regarding the First Impressions group?
Well, Yes, Mr. Mayor, can
Yes,
I say
was asking
something,
if you had
Mr. Mayor?
questions to you,
Yeah.
Councillor Collins.
No, it's not about question. I just want to say that it's not a time about mudslinging. I'm not here for mudslinging. What I'm trying to say, I'm embracing the step that has been taken forward by informing me of meetings to be held in the future. Elected since May 2nd of 2019. And this is the second time I've been informed about meetings. Thanks ever so much. I'm not going to go about with mudslinging and try to counter what she has said, or that is meaningless.
Councillor Collins, you've made your point clearly and concisely. Did Councillor Newmark want to say anything? I saw Councillor Newmark raise his hand.
No, I did have a question, but I didn't want to prolong this part of the discussion. I was simply going to ask Councillor Collins if he felt it might assist matters, given that there do appear to have been some communication issues one way or another, that if perhaps first impressions could be asked to keep the town council office appraised of dates and times of meetings. I assume they're set in advance, so that as an additional belt and braces, the town council office could officially inform him as one of the council representatives when these meetings are happening. I think that it would be entirely appropriate for that to happen, and I wonder if he feels that would help and avoid any future misunderstanding.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. The clerk wanted to speak.
Yes.
I was only going to make the very same suggestion myself, that if I ask Mr. Redmond to notify me of the meetings, I can let everybody know when the meetings are taking place. No problem at all. Really want to try and ensure that the members on the outside bodies are able to attend as many of the meetings as they can in a particular year. So yeah, I was simply going to make the same suggestion.
Thank you, thank you, Clark. Okay, we're going to move on now to item number 6 on the agenda, accounts for payment, to confirm the payments of accounts as approved as follows. Do I need to read it out, or do people want to look down on the agenda and agree? Are we agreed? Can we agree them all at once, the payments? Item number 6 on the agenda.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Item number 7, the annual parish meeting, to consider any actions arising from the 3rd of March 21 meeting and to review the success of the meeting. Before I move to members, I'd just like to thank the clerk, the entertainment officer, and all the other professional staff for all the work they've put in organising the annual parish meeting. Would anybody like to comment on the annual parish meeting? Any comments, colleagues?
I would like.
Councillor Turner.
I'd just like to say that I've had the pleasure of attending about 15 of these parish meetings. I feel this one was superb. I think the content was superb. I think the way it was organised was superb. Of course, it's a very special year because of all the happenings. And it really showed how incredible this town is and how the organisations in this town have reacted. It was superb.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Turner. Any other? Any other comments? Councillor Chalice.
Thank you. Sorry, that old problem of not being able to unmute. So yeah, I just would like to say thank you to the groups that took part, and also especially to Tim for the message that he delivered, because I think that was truly representative of sort of the year we've had. So a big thanks to him, and also to all the groups that took part. I think we can hopefully learn some things from that meeting going forward, especially as we go back into potentially meetings in person. I think we shouldn't be afraid of still using some of what we learned from the past year about actually, I know we all took a little while to adjust to it, we still do at times, in terms of online meetings and perhaps hybrid models that allow for greater participation, that allows for people to be able to watch and participate in meetings, and whether they're there in person or joining remotely could be a really good idea for us to look into as a town council. And yes, hopefully we'll just continue to go from strength to strength. Obviously, there were a few issues that have come up from that meeting as well, and hopefully we can address those in calm manners going forward. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chalice. Very well said. Would it be inappropriate for me to propose a vote of thanks to all those organisations that took part?
Yes.
Councillor Clark. Hugh Jones, you wanted to speak.
Sorry, thank you. I thought you were referring to me as a councillor there, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, without any wish to embarrass him, because I can see he's also here in the attendees at this very meeting. Earlier on today, there was a youth council meeting, but the office conveyed through members the thanks to the youth council chair, leader, for his excellent maiden speech, if you like, at the annual meeting, and that he conducted himself in an exemplary way. It's assumed that from your views of the meeting, we should write letters of thanks to all of the, I think there were 16 participants who were the speakers at the meetings from the local organisations. Thank them for attending the meeting, and hope to hear from them again in the future.
So just to answer you, I've already written to each and every participant to thank them for attending. Apart from Reverend War, which we wrote a paper letter, I emailed thanks to each and every participant. Some of the replies I got from them I did share with colleagues, but I can share them with anybody that would like to see them. Councillor Butler, just in a minute. So after Councillor Butler has spoken, can I ask somebody potentially to second a motion to thank all those participants for coming? Would anybody say? Councillor Butler, you'll second me?
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second that, to say thank you to all the participants that came along to that meeting. This meeting is, this agenda item is clearly stating that, discuss things that have happened at that meeting as well. Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I wasn't satisfied, to be fair, that one of my members was kicked out of the meeting the way they were. I think it was out of order. We are politically in one camp or another, and my member was answering a question from a member of the public, and they got kicked out with your permission, Mr. Mayor, and I wasn't really satisfied with it. It was out of order, and I think my member deserves an apology for the way he actually was treated that evening. Not only that, Mr. Mayor, we had a lot of people there, but at the same time, we didn't have a lot of people there. We missed out on a lot of groups and organisations as well who would have come in the past. So yes, we can clap and pat ourselves on the back in some areas, but at the same time, we are missing tricks in others. It's not easy to hold a Zoom meeting, especially with that amount of participants. I sympathise for our staff who have to keep an eye on actually the process of the meeting, allowing people back in and off meetings and keeping an eye on everything that's going on, making clear notes and objections. And also the fact that the town council's own webcast was still not put up of that meeting. I'm not sure if it's up now. Maybe I can get some clarification on that. But it wasn't put up. So if we want to be an open and transparent council, why are we withholding an open and transparent meeting? I look forward to hearing what other members have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments on the annual parish meeting? Councillor Newmark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think that this council needs to reflect on the remarks that our group leader has just made. I do think that there is a tendency, particularly in open public meetings of that nature, to brand any comments made by members of the opposition group at this council as party political when others are allowed to get away with murder. And despite that, there aren't any rules in the standing orders of this council that bar people from being party political, even though, as you heard my remarks earlier, which were the same remarks I would have made at the meeting. Yes, they were critical of the leadership of this authority for not doing enough on an issue, but that's what oppositions are meant to do. It's what oppositions are entitled to do. It's not within the purview of the mayor to silence opposition councillors just because they're opposition councillors. I did not interrupt or speak over anybody until they tried to silence me. And what I really would like to ask, because this is a question and this is in the spirit of perhaps learning going forward, but as we heard tonight, the council's standing orders are very clear about the process for removing a member from a meeting, and it does need to be a formal motion that is moved by the mayor, seconded and voted on. And the reason for that is because it is an incredibly serious thing to do to remove an elected member from a meeting. It cannot and should not be done on a whim. It also places the town clerk or whoever is servicing the meeting as a member of staff in an intolerable and unacceptable position, because removing a member from a meeting on political grounds is invariably going to provoke a political reaction. I believe that asking the town clerk to act in the way he was asked to is probably a violation of the staff protocol in those circumstances. But what I really want to understand is we're being told after the annual parish meeting in correspondence that the rules and standing orders of this council do not apply to the annual parish meeting. If that's the case, somebody, presumably you, Mr. Mayor, because you chair the annual parish meeting, ought to be able to tell us what rules do apply to the annual parish meeting. What are the standing orders for those meetings? Where can we find them as councillors? And when, as councillors, have we ever been told that the annual parish meeting is exempt from the standing orders for meetings of this council? Because that has never been made clear. I certainly may have framed my intervention differently if that had been set out, but we do have a set of standing orders that are printed and published, and I think it's perfectly natural for councillors to assume that any meeting held under the purview of the council will be held under those standing orders unless we are told otherwise and provided with different instructions. So, Mr. Mayor, can you help us with that, please?
Your queries will all be answered in due course once advice has been taken. I'd just like to move on now to, has anybody got any more comments regarding the annual parish meeting? Anybody that hasn't spoken up to now?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you chaired that meeting, so you must be aware what standing orders and rules it was run under. Why do you need to take advice on that, Mr. Mayor?
As I repeat, I refer you to my comment a minute ago.
So that means you don't know. Thank you.
You're speaking out of turn.
No.
Colleagues, are there any more comments to be made regarding the annual parish meeting?
I've got my hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Vince.
When will I wasn't able to make that meeting. Lots of residents are contacting me about that meeting. It seems to be as notorious as Piers Morgan leaving GMTV.
Yeah.
When will that meeting be on YouTube?
Thank you, Councillor Vince. Hugh Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and endeavour to be as helpful as possible. Yes, there has been correspondence following that meeting, and perhaps unsurprised, I knew that members were dissatisfied with certain aspects of the annual parish meeting. I've endeavoured to be as thorough as possible, because I want to provide you with the most accurate information that I can about the various rules of that meeting, together with this one. There are no set standing orders for the annual parish meeting. There's very little about it in Charles Arnold Baker, but it does specifically say that the annual parish meeting is not the same as an ordinary council meeting. And there is a paragraph which I read earlier today whilst I was looking into it further, which talks about the relationship between the annual parish meeting and other council meetings, and the weights that decisions taken at that meeting held compared to others. I've provided members with, I haven't cherry picked them, I've tried to provide all of the relevant paragraphs from the standing orders, from the Good Councillor Guide, and from Charles Arnold Baker about the rules and procedures for removing town councillors or members of the public from ordinary meetings. I'm endeavouring to do that with regards to the annual parish meeting. The bottom line for me, and I'm obviously clearly, you know, Councillor Newmark's absolutely right. It's not a decision that's taken lightly to remove a councillor from any meeting. It's never happened in the last 10 years at this authority, as far as I'm aware. But the rules do stipulate that the mayor will preside at the meeting, and even the standing orders say that the mayor's interpretation of standing orders and their application is the responsibility of the mayor. So when the mayor asks that, you know, X, Y, and Z happen at a meeting, then really that is what should happen. I have engaged with, you will have seen, both the monitoring officer at the Borough Council, but also our advisors at the County Association to obtain clarity on this. And I think it is important going forwards that, yes, no, we absolutely be crystal clear about the rules. I have in the past provided members and indeed members of the public through town crier articles an explanation about the special status of the annual parish meeting. You will remember at a previous council meeting when some members were saying we should do an update report of what the town council has achieved on any particular project. And certainly we used to, when I started at the authority, we used to have a chairman, each of the committee chairmen would do a sort of a short annual report, and then I would do an annual report about the meeting. When we went for the quality award of the local council award scheme, the assessor at that time said to us, look, this is all very good, but one thing about your annual parish meetings is that they seem to be quite council business focused. And really, it's more of an opportunity for people to come as the electorate and to talk about what they want to do, not on town council business. And again, the paragraph in Charles Arnold Baker about the relationship between the annual parish meeting and ordinary town council meetings is quite illuminating in that fact. But I have asked for further advice about that. That's pretty much what I was hoping to say. But of course, you know, we endeavour and hope that all of our meetings and our communication will be conducted in a way that you know, doesn't cause upset.
Thank you, Clark. Right.
Sorry, one final point. So no, to answer both Richard Butler and Councillor Richard Butler and Councillor Michelle Vince's points, reason I did say, I think maybe before some members were present, that the annual parish meeting wasn't live streamed as this meeting is to YouTube at the time, is because A, we were unsure about having, well, as it turned out, there were 40 participants at the meeting, and B, we had to play both a video from Dropbox, which was provided by the Reverend War, and then another video by Dan Salter, the entertainments officer, with the mayor's reports. I've also had to convert the recording, but I did record it on the Zoom facility. I needed to free up space to do that. And I have converted that now into a format that can go on YouTube, if that's the wish of members, to put that meeting on YouTube. Not all authorities do or have to, but you know, we have been doing that. To have that on YouTube, I could probably do that tomorrow morning if that's what, or ask for that to be done tomorrow morning. I'm not technically capable of doing it, but we'll put it there. We've got the video, and I can send a copy to all members by email if you're able to view it in that way too.
Councillor Butler.
Very quickly, just to say, yeah, I think we should put it up. I think in the end of the day, we need to be open and transparent, and people should have the ability to see what we're up to, even at an annual parish meeting. I think it's actually very good, but also for all those organisations and faith leaders and everyone that attended that evening, to be able to show it to their organisations and members as well, to know that they actually had a chance to have their say and give a report back to a town authority and listen to what others have to say. I think it's very good for openness and transparency.
Okay, any more? Can I have a final comment on the annual parish? Any more comments? Okay, so Councillor Butler, can we move to vote? Councillor Butler, can we move to vote?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on your motion to write letters? Or?
I propose a vote of thanks to all those organisations that not only attended the annual parish meeting, but every organisation in our town did for others so far during the pandemic. Are you happy to second that?
Yeah, happy to second that, Mr. Mayor, and happy to move to a vote.
Okay, can we vote on this? Does everybody agree with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item number 8, public participation. Are there any members of the public that...
There are, Mr. Mayor, but I also noticed that Councillor Vince has her hand up. I don't know if she hasn't taken it down.
Yeah, Councillor Vince, did you want to comment?
I think maybe she hasn't.
Yeah, I've just not took it down.
Oh, right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vince. Right, public participation. Public participation is 15 minutes of the meeting will be given over to questions from members of the public relating to town council business. The time now is 20 to 9, so we have until 5 to 9 to take public questions. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question?
Yes, there is, Mr. Mayor. There are two, as I said, there are two attendees. I'm sure they won't mind me saying who they are. I've already mentioned one of them. The second is Mr. John Cartledge, who's raised his hand to speak. The Youth Council Chair hasn't indicated that he wants to do that. So with your leave, I'll allow Mr. Cartledge to join the meeting as a panelist.
Mr. Cartledge,
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've viewed your proceedings this evening with close interest, as always. There's one topic I'd like to update you on very briefly, if I may, and that's the proposal that Alden Reservoir be registered as an asset of community value. Just before I do that, though, I wonder if I might say two things. One is that in order to join this meeting, I had to type in a 74-digit code that is printed at the top of your agenda because the button on the website is not working. I don't know whether other members of the public have found themselves excluded for the same reason, but that is really not a very helpful route to facilitating public participation. So if there's a technical issue there, perhaps it could be investigated. I don't want to reopen the discussion that you had earlier with Councillor Newmark about what happened at the annual parish meeting. All I can say is that on every occasion that I have raised the question of the reservoir at meetings of this council and its subcommittee, my question has always been about what this council is doing. And on every occasion, if I've got an answer at all, it's been about what other people are doing or allegedly doing. I think that's an important distinction, and it remains my view that it's the duty of this council to raise this issue on behalf of its residents with relevant parties and not leave it to other groups in the community, however virtuous, to assume that responsibility themselves. But the specific information I want to give you is about the asset of community value. That proposal came from EBRA and was endorsed by this council and put to Hertsmere, who rejected it on the grounds that the reservoir was not eligible because it was an operational body. In fact, there's nothing in the Localism Act that prevents reservoirs being listed as assets of community value. So I think that Hertsmere's grounds for refusal were factually wrong. There are other grounds relating to whether or not the reservoir has the status of operational land for a public utility that might have been grounds for rejection. My view is that they don't apply in the case of Alden Reservoir, but I've been endeavouring to pursue this issue with Hertsmere Council for the last 6 months. I raised it with them as a freedom of information request. They're supposed to reply within 40 days. They've had several reminders from me. It's now 6 months on and there's still been no substantive reply from that council. So I have activated its formal grievance procedure to see if that will coerce it into coming up with a more credible answer than it did in the first time. When there's anything further to report, sorry, Teddy's successor is trying to join this discussion. That's what the noises are. I apologise. if there's anything, if and when there's anything further substantive, I will obviously share it with you. But it's deeply unsatisfactory that Hertsmere Council has simply failed to come up with any adequate or indeed any explanation at all of the position it took. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it should at least be able to explain it, and so far it hasn't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cartledge. Are there any other members of the public that would like to ask a question, or is there anybody that would like to respond to Mr. Cartledge's question? Okay. The clerk, followed by Councillor Newmark.
Oh, well, sorry, mine was only very quickly about the technical issue. And so it's always seemed to have worked in the past, that link. In fact, it seems to have worked better than other ways of joining the meeting. But I'll ask the IT consultants to look into that tomorrow. It's very frustrating if you haven't been able to click in into the meeting. You know, that there are several ways of doing this. I'm sorry you had to type in that incredibly long algorithm in order to do so. I don't write those, Mr. Cartledge, they're done by Zoom, but I'm sorry about your problems.
Thank you very much. Councillor Newmark.
Yeah, my response is that I'm disappointed that nobody from the administration group in this council is responding to Mr. Cartledge's appeal that this council take a lead on the issue of Alden and Reservoir, and that this council act as the effective convener of efforts. I think that is a shame. And I would say to Mr. Cartledge that under the standing orders of this council, it is possible for any two councillors to require the mayor to convene an extraordinary meeting of this council to discuss a specified issue. And I will be talking to colleagues after this meeting in light of the lack of response from the group that runs this council as to whether or not we wish to move forward and use that provision to ensure that we can have a debate on a specified motion, paper, or set of recommendations laying out the actions that local residents feel this council should be taking, and have a vote and either accept them or reject them, because I'm very sympathetic to the fact that all sorts of constructive proposals have been put forward, and as we see this evening, whenever they actually involve this council stepping up to the mark, taking responsibility, putting in an effort, doing some work as a council, they're met with silence. And I think that we now have to try and move this discussion along and push this authority into taking action as the lead authority on this issue. That's my response to Mr. Cartledge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions to council? Hugh, is there anybody else that would like to ask a question?
I don't think so, Mr. No, I think youth council should be observing the meeting.
Okay, so before we go to item number 9 on the agenda, I'd like to take this opportunity in congratulating the clerk on his 10th anniversary of being clerk to us in Bournemouth Town Council.
Hear, hear.
The clerk has done an amazing job. I know that Councillor Butchins and myself will be celebrating 10 years in May of being council members of this authority. And I know that in the 10 years that I've been a member of this authority, it's gone from strength to strength. The town crier, I know, is Dan Salter's work, but that's fantastic. Transport Forum, we're a quality council now. The council works, everything works like clockwork. And I know it's not only you that does it, it's you and your team, but you know, a ship without a leader is rudderless, and your leadership of this council has the evidence is there. It's not me being nice, the evidence is there that we weren't a quality council when you joined. We are a quality council today. So based on the pure evidence, I'd like, on behalf of I think all our members, to thank you for everything you've done, not only for the town council, but also for the residents of Elstree and Bournemouth.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I know you're quite a modest individual, but I'd appreciate if you could minute my thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I shall do so with the caveat of it reflecting the hard work of all of the members of staff here. And just on a personal note, I'd like to say it's a privilege to work not only with you members, but also with the team of officers here at the Town Council. And I think, especially in this period of COVID, the teams really showed great character and many activities have been carried out way above the call of duty. And, I'm happy to record your suggested minute, Mr. Mayor, but with the appeal that it includes all members of the staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9 on the agenda, close of meetings. So the next meeting of the full council is scheduled for Wednesday, the 12th of May 21 at 7:30 p.m. It's either on Zoom webinar or in Fairway Hall, subject to COVID-19 regulations. The mayor making and the annual council meeting, and it'll be the first meeting of the 21-22 municipal year. So I look forward to seeing you all on the 12th of May. And in the meantime, stay safe. And if you've been invited for a vaccine, you must go and get it done. All the best. Stay
Thank you
safe.
very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.